Hello, 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 all you beautiful nerds from around the world. What is up, everybody? I'm Josh. This is the Den of Nerds Live, and this is a community stream. This is a stream that we do. We're going to try to do these once a week, where we bring in all kinds of other people. People can hop on the stream with us, and we can discuss some things as a group. As a group in this fandom. This topic for this community live stream, I thought it would be kind of a cool follow-up based on the one we did last week. If we talked about if fandom has too much power. And I think there's a lot of different layers to this. There's a lot of different things that we can get into. And if one of the executive producers could do me a favor and drop the link that I threw in our chat into the YouTube chat, anybody that's on the chat right now, and we'll periodically put the link back into the chat. Anybody that's hanging out right now, you can come on to the chat if you'd like, and we can have this discussion and we can have some fun. I think I've already got one person that wants... Let's pause the music. Pause the music. Get that music out of my face. I think we got one person at least here, and that would be Alex, executive producer Alex from the Den of Nerds. I'm going to bring him in. Alex, what's going on, brother?
Oh, I was muted. What's up? Not much, man. Not much. You know, just hanging out.
Good to have you on a stream. I gotta say, man, this picture that you have chosen as your profile picture, that's like a glorious headshot. You look just way too attractive for this channel. So I don't know.
The best thing about that picture is I'm probably about 4 or 5 beers in, and I'm at a brewery in that picture. So that's also my LinkedIn picture. So
beautiful.
Go figure.
Beautiful. Well, you never know. You never know when you're gonna get a good snapshot, if you will, of yourself and all of that.
Gotta love portrait mode.
You gotta love it. It's a beautiful thing, and it's launched the careers of many Instagram lady as well. So we got a couple other people in the chat that I want to bring in here, and then we'll get right into it because I kind of want to moderate. So let's just bring in Star Wars Santa first of all. How we doing?
Hello.
How we doing, Santa? How you doing, man?
Good. Very good. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. I'm excited for this chat. And then we've got Daniel here. I see his camera's going a little bit crazy. Daniel, I'm gonna bring you in. Are you good? All right, here we go.
Hey guys,
Let's bring Daniel in. What's up, brother? How are you?
good. How about you?
Good, man. Good. Excited to have this discussion, man. So we'll start with this crew here, and as more people trickle in, we'll get more people into the chat. Again, guys, you can all, if you would like, come into the chat. We'll drop the link in there for whomever. Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to sort of bring up to you guys is I'm curious about this. There's two examples I think in recent memory that are examples of like a good side of this and a bad side of this argument. Okay. And the good side of this argument, I think, is best exemplified in Sonic the Hedgehog, the new Sonic the Hedgehog. You know, originally that character design came out. And Daniel, I'm getting a little bit of feedback from you, brother. If you've got headphones, that might help that out a little bit. I have your mic muted for now, but we'll try it again in a second here. Now, I see Jen in here too. We'll get Jen in here in a second. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are about the Sonic situation, because obviously that was a good version of fandom exerting its power. And so I'll start with you, Alex, but I'm going to go ahead and bring Jen in as well. So go ahead, Alex.
Well, this is a perfect example of, a situation where the fans got it right. Fans aren't always right when it comes to everything, but when it came to Sonic, I think everybody and their grandma pretty much agreed that, they needed to fix the animation and the CGI that was, involved with creating Sonic. It was just absolutely terrible. Everybody knew it needed to change. Something needed to happen, and I was absolutely surprised when it actually, they went back and changed it, but, the fans got it right.
Fans got it right. That you've heard that from Alex. Santa, what do you think, brother? Tell us a little bit about that Sonic situation from your perspective.
Well, yeah, I've never been a huge Sonic fan, but when the first trailer came out, it was obvious that was a hot mess, and the fan reaction right away let the studios know that it just wasn't going to stand up to criticism. And fortunately, the studios took that as an opportunity to fix something that was going to meet their core audience, their expectations, and help bring them in.
Amen. Jen, I want to go to you next, just because you're in the row next. What do you think?
Greetings. Somewhat groundbreaking for the film industry that this even happened. I don't think a lot of studios even have this opportunity to listen to fans. I think often they're, from the get-go, when they start off with the first trailer, they're usually set in stone and they don't really plan to make any big changes. Like, they basically don't have a choice. They're already set on a certain way. So when I heard that actually the design for Sonic was not set in stone yet, as far as I heard, that it didn't cost as much as people thought it would to fix the design. This was a very unique opportunity when they actually could make a change. And I wonder if other studios are going to look at this and wonder if they need to set themselves up for a position to actually listen to people. Because this is one of the few times I think that we got this opportunity where the fans were somewhat listened to.
Interesting. Daniel, what's your take, man? What's your take on the Sonic situation?
I just can't believe how much influence like fan powers like having now. It's like a good thing in some ways, and in the Star Wars perspective, it's getting a little out of hand in some ways. Which you address a lot, which is very true. And but the Sonic, it was a positive way. Hopefully, we see that in the theaters. But I think it's awesome.
Yeah,
and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, so what about this? What if the Sonic situation, I saw somebody bring this up in chat, I think it's an interesting point. What if Sonic makes no money? Because one of the things was there were a lot of people really loud on Twitter about Sonic, right? But what if it doesn't actually make the money that they think it's actually going to make? Do you know what I mean? Would that then totally shift the narrative? Would that make it a horrible decision? Alex, I'll go to you first. What do you think?
No, honestly, I think that even if they, just break even, I think that, it's the right decision. Like, who in their right mind, like honestly, going back looking at that first trailer, thought that that was what Sonic would look like in any real life, depiction of Sonic. So I think that it was absolutely the right move to make. Whether they lose money or break even or make a profit, I think 100% it was the right decision by them to go back and change.
Interesting. What do you think, Santa? Is this a naughty decision if it doesn't make any money?
Well, I imagine people that bean counters have figured out that if they spent so much money, however much they spent to redo it, would it get them the return on investment that they put in, right? So if you were looking at taking a huge loss, but by spending the money, it comes up to being close to break even, or your losses are reduced, then it was a good spend. So I imagine somebody there thought we've got to do something to salvage this investment, and it's all from an investment standpoint at that point. Let's do what we can, because honestly, in other cases where it's received such poor reception, it goes straight to video or something like that, right? So that they stuck with doing a broad release, and that they went to remake it means that they think there's something to be salvaged.
Yeah, no, I like that. Jen, what do you think? Is it dependent on the money, or what's your take on it?
Yeah, I agree with Santa there that I think whatever extra it costed to make the change, I'm pretty sure they're going to make it up, just because I have heard people saying even if the film sucks, they're still going to go there because they want to support the movie. I think if it does lose money, that's going to be completely ironic, and it will make the studio look like fools. But I don't think they're going to look like fools this time. I think they'll be rewarded somewhat well.
Yeah, Daniel, what do you think, man?
I agree with everybody. Honestly, that I think the same way, because it's really gonna prove kind of how much this fandom is like really putting like their words to their mouth, I guess, online. Like kind of like everyone's gonna show up to Area 51, but nobody did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I don't know. I think that's kind of like kind of a similar kind of thing like that. And it's going to really prove if people are going to show up.
Yeah, I'm really interested. I'm really curious. I'm one of those guys that's probably said somewhere that I'm definitely gonna go see it now that they've made this decision. But like if it really rolls around to that weekend and I've got something better to do, like am I gonna be that guy? You know what I mean? And will a ton of people be that guy? That's going to be a really interesting question. Now I want to shift, guys, into an example of what I think is sort of a bad version of this, okay? And it pains me to say this a little bit because we're going to talk about The Rise of Skywalker. And although I, like that movie quite a bit, as many people know, I can fully admit that this might have been an example of a company or a director, or however you want to look at it, maybe listening a little bit too much to a particular fan base. And without leading it too much, I guess I just want to start there broadly. I guess first question is, Alex, what do you think? Do you think that this was an example of that by Lucasfilm and JJ?
I think there's certain aspects where they, maybe they've kind of pick and choose the little battles and fights they kind of want to win to, throw in the particular, aspects to appease certain fan bases. Whether or not there's a huge push towards one side versus another, I'm not entirely sure. I really think they were trying to appease as many fans as possible. And I think by doing so, they, just kind of got too many fans put off by it. You know, I'm one of the fans that I actually absolutely love the movie. You know, I think there's some parts of it that, you know, I didn't agree with, but this is what the creators wanted to put out there. They wanted to appease as many people as possible, and I think that, you know, they generally may have gone the right way, but um, they should have maybe been a little bit more wise with some of the ways they picked certain aspects of the film.
Interesting. Interesting. What's your take, Santa? What are you thinking about this?
Well, I think the fan base had become really divided. We're still divided pretty bad, and this is an example of a theater or a producer trying to bring a fan base back together, realizing that the damage had been done. So we're not starting with the place where maybe we're in an okay place, and then they create a fan fiction movie, but the studio says we've got a problem. We recognize the problem. We had like Kathy Kennedy come out right before the release, and she kind of made some gestures to that effect. And JJ certainly said he had heard it as well. So with the studio recognizing there's a problem, recognizing that the fan base is still really riled up and fighting amongst each other. The Rise of Skywalker, I think, did some to help heal that rift. There's a sacrifice to do that, though, right? The sacrifice is putting out a movie that was maybe a better story or maybe a better context for the trilogy arc as a whole that might have helped wrap things up a little better, but and better becomes subjective, because those of us who really liked The Last Jedi and were ready for the next chapter were on one side, and then like a huge mass of the fan base was completely on the other side, ready to jettison it, right? So they had to do something, and I think they did the best they could. And listening to the fans, I don't know that I'd say it was a bad thing to do, because I think they were kind of pushed in a corner by previous decisions they made.
Okay, I mean that's an interesting take, Jen. I'm really interested in what you think about this, because I think out of many of us here, you might have the most problems with Rise, which is totally fine. But what's your take on this? And real quick before you answer, is it really your birthday?
It is.
Holy cow! Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Yep, that's why I wanted to come on here.
Nice, happy birthday to you, Dana.
Yeah,
did you say your
thank you.
birthday's tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh,
my
we're birthday
Swear to
buddies.
God. Happy
Awesome.
birthday, Jen.
Yep, happy birthday to you too.
Nice. We got
Sorry to
some,
interrupt the show,
Birthday,
but
everybody.
we got some birthday love. That's pretty awesome. I'm going to go ahead and bring Maverick Pilgrim in as well. But go ahead, Jen. Give us your take on the question about Rise of Skywalker. Are we listening too much to fans? What do you think?
Okay, so this is what I just through just observing things on the internet. As much as we feel that a lot of, even the majority of human experience is on the internet these days, and you hear the most voices there, I'm not quite sure that is even the majority, or at least the entirety of just the fans, normal film audiences out there in general. And what I felt Disney was doing was specifically trying to appease internet people. And so it seems, and if you look at the statistics of like, okay, yeah, the Rotten Tomatoes is pretty good. Cinema score is fairly good. It could be better.
Yeah.
But then when you look at the box office and then you think, wow, there's definitely hundreds of millions was left on the table. What was missing? So it seems like they were really aiming to please people that watch YouTube, people that do Instagram, all of that. But they might have needed to be a little more broader in who they were trying to please. So I think they made some good decisions that made sense overall with the arc. But then there's some other things that happened that I felt wasn't appealing enough to enough people actually in the long run. And I think that's what made it suffer.
I mean, I like that. I like that take. I think it's I think there's something there. Maybe something we'll talk more about in a second here, because I like that idea. Because this is something that I was thinking of as I was preparing for this. I was like, well, what do fans even want, and how do you really gauge what fans want? But we'll get there in a second. Daniel, what's your take on Rise? Do you think that we listen too much to fans?
Yeah, when it comes to like something like Star Wars, like, it's such like a touchy, sentimental subject, and it has such like a broad like spectrum of fan base, like not just in like people and diversity, but in age. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So like, there's people that grew up with it and like want a certain kind of Star Wars that they're looking for, and then there's people like us that kind of just love Star Wars in its entirety and more than just like just the movies itself.
Right.
And it's just so hard to please everybody, and you're never going to. And then those people that you don't please, they got the internet, and they're just gonna crap all over everybody.
Yeah.
Until they get what they want.
Right, right. But what I found so ironic about, and I'll go to you, Maverick, in just a second, Maverick. What I found so ironic about that situation with Rise was that it seemed like, to Jen's point, the internet people, or the people that you could maybe potentially make the case that Disney was trying to appease, they by and large rejected the movie. And actually, interestingly to me, a lot of them said, and it's really hard for me to gauge sometimes, because you know,
Right.
how much of it's a performance, how much of it do they actually mean, right? um some of them said that the Rise of Skywalker is even worse than the Last Jedi, which would literally make me kind of, that's very curious to me. It's like you were kind of
It's
given everything.
contradiction.
Exactly, you were kind of given everything you said you wanted, and then you threw up your hands anyways and said you didn't like it. But Maverick Pilgrim, man, you're sitting sideways, boys in a daze. What's your thoughts, brother, on Rise of Skywalker? Do we listen too much to fans? Uh-oh. Mav, you might be muted, bro.
He's going for a jog.
Yeah, he's going for a jog. We might not be able to. I don't think we can hear you, brother. I don't know if it's just your phone or whatnot. It doesn't say that your microphone is muted, but there's no audio coming in, so I don't really know. Uh-oh, we're getting Blair Witch Project by Maverick right now.
He's got the AirPods in.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yo, Mav, I'm gonna just take you out for a second, brother. Maybe see if you can figure it out. Let me know and hop back in, okay? All right, brother. That's a shame, because you know why? Because honestly, I really love what Maverick's mind, and he said some really interesting things last community stream. So it would be awesome to get him in here. But maybe while he tries to figure out that issue, we'll bring in Al Schuler. I know Al Schuler's got some things to say. Al Schuler in the building. What's going on?
Up? What's going
Al?
on?
What's
going
up,
on,
man?
people?
Yo, Al,
What's up?
talk to
Not
me.
much, man.
Talk to me about this Rise of Skywalker, man. Did they listen too much to the fans? I know you and I really like the movie, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think, man, honestly, I think they did kind of cave into the fans a little bit. I'm not necessarily complaining about it. I thought it was a dope movie. I mean, as a movie itself, we know it wasn't all that great, but as a Star Wars flick, I think it was super dope. But you can certainly tell that JJ and Disney Lucasfilm decided to cave into the pressure for the fans. And I mean, some of it's for better, some of it's for worse. There's some rumors going around about some interesting choices and things like that. So I'm really curious to see kind of when everything comes out, what was all on the table from the beginning and kind of what it whittled down to, because that'll really give us, I think, the most accurate depiction of what happened and if they really caved in or not. But just looking at the movie itself, I mean, it's hard not to say they really caved in a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, I think that's
Okay.
I think that's a totally fair take. Real quick, I just want to mention the super chat coming in from Jason. Says, how ironic that the first words spoken in TFA were, "This will begin to make things right. Hubris hurt them. Appeasement buried them." I mean, I think that's kind of a powerful statement. You know what I mean? Hubris hurt, appeasement buried them. But just to get a little bit more into Star Wars specifically, even The Force Awakens, you could say that The Force Awakens itself was approached in a way that was really wanted to have what the fans would want. And I felt like Disney was sort of looking at what happened with the prequels and kind of making a decision based on what had happened with the prequels to give us a type of Star Wars that they felt would be really, really digestible. So, Alex, I want to start with you and we'll go around again. When you look back at The Force Awakens, because this is such a weird thing, right? Like people flamed George so hard, right, for the prequels. But nowadays on the internet, it really does seem like most people really like the prequels, and it just kind of begs that question. It's like, do fans even know really what they want, or do fans what do fans really want? Maybe is to be surprised and to get what they wanted in an unexpected way. So looking back at TFA, Alex, what's your take on that? Did they listen too much to fans even at the start?
You know, they may have just, you know, listened too much, you know, from the fans from the start. You know, it all goes back to they kind of just rehashed, you know, the initial, you know, original Star Wars. But I honestly think that there's just way too much, you know, pushed onto the fans, I think, and they wanted to appease a lot of them throughout the process. And then, you know, they brought in Ryan Johnson in the second film, and they're like, okay, we're going to try to do something a little bit different here and see how this works. And that kind of just split it up even more. And they're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now to bring everything all back together? And, you know, the more and more I think about it, the more and more I think that they really have been kind of trying to push it. You know, how can we appease you know, all the fans as much as possible, but try not to get them angry at the same time. But the thing is, you can't appease everybody. It's impossible. Everybody's going to want a completely different thing, and at the end of the day, everyone's just they're gonna voice their opinion online, and everyone has huge platforms nowadays, so they're gonna get their opinion up there.
Yeah, just real quick, Al, come back into the studio. I don't know what just happened. I might have accidentally kicked you out, so come back in. But Santa, yeah, what do you think, man? Do you think that they screwed it up from the start, or where are you at with that?
Well, it's an interesting thought with looking in hindsight. The Force Awakens, I think, addressed fans in a very respectful way in many ways. As you mentioned, I can remember I was an adult when the prequels came out, and I'm part of that group of folks that still haven't completely reconciled to the prequels. Uh, the there's still so much that the prequel movies did to the originals that I still don't fully accept. But when The Force Awakens came along, it hit all the right buttons for me, right? So, and I think it did for a mass audience. If you look at the box office, Jen brought up a really good point earlier that the box office is one really good barometer for fan like dislike, and the Force Awakens checked that box big, and I think looking back, it's easy to look at it and say, well, you know, it's a rehash of A New Hope in many ways, and it comes across as a soft reboot, but it's not intended to be a start of a new thing. So there seems to be the problem. If you're going to soft reboot and move forward, then to try to tie it back and bring that in is you've got a conflict of interest. For me, when we get to The Last Jedi and they brought back Yoda in, you know, true form, they went back and got the original molds and they recast him and you got this, you know, the physical effects there. That again made me happy when I saw Yoda. It's like, that's Yoda, right? Like it wasn't the prequel Yoda, it was the real Yoda, right? So for me, so
right.
That I think I see now people looking back and saying that The Force Awakens doesn't have a long shelf life. Like the rewatchability of it diminishes because it's a rehash of the original. But I think that again comes off of where you're coming from. And if you're doing a soft reboot for a new generation of folks, and it's been over 20 years since the last group of folks grew up with Star Wars, we're going to have kids today that this was their reboot, right? This is where the movie started for them.
Right.
and they're not going to be tied back to the prequels. They're not going to be tied back. And I think Daniel mentioned before, like there are people who just watch the movies, and there's people who consume the rest. And the people who consume the rest are the ones that were most upset by The Last Jedi. And I think as we move forward and the time passes and we get some more filler, those sins are going to be more forgiven, just like the prequels sins are more forgiven for folks like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little fan servicey. They listened to too much of the prequel backlash, but I think it showed that that can be a profitable way to go.
Yeah. No, I think that's totally fair. Al, what's your take on this, man?
Yeah, I feel like it's really an interesting balance you have to kind of learn to strike, and I think they're still kind of trying to find their way with that. But I totally agree. When you look at kids like my daughter, taking her to see The Rise of Skywalker, that movie for her was basically her empire. Just the way that she took it in, all the twists and turns in that movie. Because I didn't give her any of the spoilers I had or anything like that, so I was totally watching her and seeing how every one of the little plot twists kind of impacted her. And by that end of the movie, she was emotionally spent, like she was out. And so, thinking about that, I look at it and it's like when she gets to be my age and she's taking her kids, that's going to be kind of what she connects to is this sequel trilogy. So, us OGs that go way back and go back to, the days of the original trilogy. Yeah, we've been nitpicking, some of us for 40 years now going on. And we have that ability because we've kind of been there from the beginning. But the thing to keep in the context is just like with the prequel trilogy now, the people who were kind of railing against the prequel trilogy, now it's a different tune when you look at it and juxtapose it against what we got with the sequel trilogy. So it's really interesting, and I'm really curious to see how it plays out as we roll on in the years and we get more Star Wars movies from Disney Lucasfilm. It'll be really interesting to see how we frame or we look back at these movies and how much negativity is surrounding them, because I think a lot of it too from us goes along with the fact that we kind of were behind the curtains a little bit, hearing about some of the stuff that was going on with the production, knowing what was going on with the directors and the storyline and the issues with Kathleen Kennedy and all that. So it's like in 20 years, people aren't really going to be worried about all that. They're going to be looking at the movies for what they are. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of how it plays out in the next few years.
I like it. Jen, what do you think? What's your take?
I really did enjoy The Force Awakens a lot when it first came out. I understand people calling it derivative and all that, and I've heard some pretty good criticisms over it over the past, but I felt it established its characters pretty well, especially characters like Rey and Finn, who I immediately gravitated to in those stories. And I feel that what The Force Awakens benefits from is that getting to start off kind of brand new with these new characters, it didn't have to worry about developing them ahead of further down the road. It just kind of stood by itself. And I feel like all the complications of the sequel trilogy is where they took the characters next. And that's what got the fans most upset because, that's what The Last Jedi upsetted so many people about, because it didn't go the next direction that they were hoping. And then likewise, Rise of Skywalker displayed the whole other group. On the topic of how this trilogy will be perceived in the future, unfortunately, I think this will cause even more divide. I guess you could say there's going to be OT fans, there's going to be prequel fans, there's going to be sequel fans, and somehow we're all going to have to just get along one day and just be like, yep, that's your trilogy, and we're not going to have to do all this hierarchy of which is the better trilogy out of the three. It'll be nice when we figure that out.
Yeah, I totally agree. Daniel, what do you think, man? Did they listen too much to fans from the jump, or what's your take?
Well, yeah, I think we all, have pretty much agreement that they, do at least a little bit, and I think us as, a community and of being fans, we all have a responsibility, to allow your perception to be cleansed. There's a great quote that it says, if the doors of perception are cleansed, everything will appear to man as it is, infinite. And like if you just like how Jen was saying, and like they were trying to like kind of backtrack a story arc that was being started in The Force Awakens back to the prequels or back to the original trilogy to make everybody happy, and it took away from the story that could have been told from the get go, like, and it just like it pulls away from what we can actually all get as a fan base from a movie. Like it takes away from what we all can or could have gotten. Like I think it just, the more like we do that, it just pulls away from like the intent that we're trying to do from like the start, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think I got what you're picking up what you're setting down. I think that was Huxley, right? That quote.
Yeah, it was.
From the Doors Perception. Yeah. I'm gonna bring in Dan the Man. Gonna bring you in, brother. Here we go.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. We got you. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, you've been listening to us probably a little bit. Do you have a take on this Star Wars situation? Have they been listening too much to fans? What do you think?
Honestly, bro, I feel like that for us as fans, we need to just not take this stuff like too much to heart, because much like EP said, there's a lot of, coming from us, like, okay, so the original trilogy, everybody hated The Empire Strikes Back when it came out. Let's not forget that.
Right.
Okay. So when that came out, whoop, then we enjoyed it for what it was, though. The original trilogy as it is. Prequel trilogy comes out. Everybody hates on the prequels,
Right.
Like they hate Jar Jar, and I'm a prequel fan, so there's some of us out there. But basically, guys, what I'm trying to say is that how we go about things shouldn't really be. They're movies. They shouldn't be taken too seriously. Like Star Wars isn't gonna pay your bills. You feel me? Like it's just take it for what it is, guys. Don't take it too seriously, for real.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you don't have to watch the sequel trilogy, honestly. Like I was having a conversation with my buddy Chris, and I was telling him that I don't blame. Yes, The Last Jedi divided the fandom, but I don't necessarily blame Ryan Johnson for that. I blame the one that made The Force Awakens into a rehash of New Hope, and I say that because they brought the same guy back to finish what's the one, Rise of Skywalker, and I don't blame him for trying to fix what he did. I think Disney meddled his work, and it ended up what we got in screens, because them nerds, you report on this a lot, that about the JJ cut, right?
Yeah. There's definitely something to that, but honestly, the more I hear about it, I'm less convinced that. And I kind of have to be careful because there's some stuff I can't exactly say, but I'm actually more convinced that JJ himself might have made some of the decisions, whether or not he felt pressure by them to do it or not. I think ultimately he did. Yeah, so I think he did make some of those decisions. I know he was crunched for time and stuff like that, but ultimately there was some stuff that he could have done that he decided not to do.
Right. Okay.
But it's hard to say, like, so like as far as the JJ stuff, I'm not saying it's 100% conspiracy, but like the more I hear from behind the scenes, it's more like JJ had a couple of ideas that were possibly really bold. And here's what's weird about it. He actually walked back on some of those ideas, and I think he walked back on them because of exactly what we're talking about, because of the perception of the fans, because he felt like if he did this stuff that's too weird, that the fans might reject it. And so instead, he kind of plays it safe with some of this stuff, and then a lot of fans reject that. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
It's a kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. But one more question I want to go through the panel, and then we'll kind of break it in a little bit, just more organic conversation about this. The other example that really comes to mind for me, guys, and I want to start with you, Santa, is the Justice League. Okay, so to me, what happened with Justice League is a perfect example of a studio. I mean, you guys know I have problems. I have issues with Warner Brothers, but like
Yeah.
when they did Batman v Superman, they had a choice to stick with Zack's vision and to let him make that movie, or to do what they thought they saw the fans wanted, right? So they go in and they make changes from like the jump. They started making changes to Justice League, and it literally gets to the point where Zack leaves and they completely remake that movie. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but to this day, Zack Snyder has never watched Justice League. He's never watched Joss Whedon's Justice League. And some people ask, like, occasionally he'll tweet some stuff like, I forget what the one was, but somebody asked him about this scene that Joss had put in, and Zack Snyder's response was literally like, "What the fuck?" Like literally like that. Like, where he couldn't believe that they had done that. But that was once again a situation where the fans, or at least the perception of the fans, had controlled what the studio did. So, Santa, what do you think about that example? Like, what was that another example of this, or is this the studio getting it wrong? What do you think?
Well, I'm probably the worst person to talk to about the Justice League because I'm the one guy that liked it.
Oh, wow, we found him. Everybody,
Wow.
we found him.
What?
There you go.
I'll go so far out. And this is where I'll get kicked off the island. Right? But I'll go so far out to say that I think the Justice League did a better job of Endgame than Endgame did of Endgame.
Oh,
Whoa.
So,
Whoa.
That's tomorrow's hot
This is
take.
over, Santa.
Tomorrow's hot take.
I'm just saying. So
Good God Almighty.
with that, I think I'll just take my lumps and pass.
Wow. All right, that's fair. Hey, look, that was pretty rowdy, though. I love it. Daniel, what do you think? What's your take on the Justice League situation?
It seems like, right as that Snyder Cut leak kind of came out, like there's a Snyder Cut, and then all the celebrities are tweeting it out, and then it seems like then there's this JJ cut, and then like it's kind of weird how that all plays out, and then there's this other cut. There's the Duel of the Fates cut. I'm not trying to go back to Star Wars, but it just kind of all ties in. But that's one part that just kind of just has me a little suspicious, but yeah, like Justice League, it was, man, it just didn't do like anything, that like anybody wanted from like that movie. It was like kind of like, if I could make an analogy, like the pop music of comic book movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the Lady, like, I don't know, like kind of like a Lady Gaga, like kind of song, like of comic book movies trying to like appease, like people are like, oh, the Flash, and then, but it just doesn't have any kind of like backstory, of any kind of like context, or, it's kind of corny, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
I think that came from them listening to fans too much, or do you think that they're like they're on a whole different thing? Like, what do you think that was?
I think it's a little bit of sprinkle of the fans, but I think it comes like down to like they haven't got it right yet, And I personally I enjoyed and I appreciated Joker, but I still didn't like feel it like that. It didn't seem like as organic as like some of these newer stories, like kind of like Marvel does. They kind of like change things up, and they kind of just got like a new take, kind of like a fresher, like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Even with like Spider-Man, like the most like comic book movie person besides Batman, it seems like they like were able to like have a breath of fresh air to him.
Yeah.
So it seems like DC and with the Justice League, they were just trying to make a little bit of money off the situation with Batman vs Superman, coming off the little bit of hype with that, and then they put the little Easter eggs. They try to get a little bit of things from Marvel, learn some things from Marvel, and then they try to get, shoot their shot with their version, and the proof is in the pudding that you got to have uh, some actual good like stuff there. You
Yeah.
got to have a good story. You got to have a good base. You got to have some like actual, you know, stories and like that the character arcs that are actually, have deeper like depth.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe. Like I think it
Gotcha.
comes down to like those two things.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. Dan, what's your take on Justice League, man? Obviously, you don't love it the way Santa does, but what do you think? Were they listening too much to fans? What do you think?
I ain't gonna hold y'all. I would have rather watched Justice League Mortal than the Justice League that we got.
I believe, yeah, I'm with you there.
Because and it's funny you mentioned some about Warner Bros. And Zach appeasing what the fans want. So Zach, I don't know if y'all know about this, but he tried to get Martian Manhunter in there, played by the
Oh,
military dude. That
okay.
was a thing. It was in his
yeah.
leaked storyboards when everyone was rallying behind him to release the cut. Martian Manhunter was going to be there, and everyone was asking for him. So, and if it's kind of seemed like they weren't like guys. There was a long theory about Aquaman talking to the whales to save Superman and Man of Steel, and that got confirmed by Jason Momoa off screen.
Yeah.
Why didn't we get that in the movie? Like little stuff like that that has to be that we had to find out through news outlets versus the movie. So because I'm still not behind Ezra Miller as a Flash. I'm sorry he appeared in Crisis, cool,
Yeah.
but I'm just I would have read nah.
Yeah, I feel
There's
you
a
there.
reason why I never bought the DVD, so um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just not my cup of tea. Nah.
Gotcha. Do you think some of that came
But
from listening to fans, or do you think it's just kind of Warner Brothers out on their own?
Warner Bros. Listening to fans is them doing this little multiverse Joker, Harley Quinn, Shazam stuff that they're doing. That's what I think.
Hmm.
Listening to fans is like they're not doing this whole dark. I mean, and we didn't really have a problem with the dark take. It was like because Zach he was going to kill off Batman in Justice League 2, right?
Yeah.
And he already killed Dick Grayson was the Nightwing in Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
So not really a lot of smart choices there, but yeah, I think that was yeah. Um, for their own failure is their fault, not the fans' fault.
Hmm.
Den of Nerds. I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm just trying to piece it all together, bro.
No. I got you. I got you. I think
It's
that's
a
a fair
lot.
take. I think that's a fair
Yeah.
take. Al, what do you think, bro? Did they listen too much to fans? What's the Warner Brothers doing besides copy claiming every video that I make?
Yeah, man. Warner Brothers makes me laugh, man. But I look at it like this, and I'll back up just a little bit because the way I look at it, it's like Marvel and the MCU is what happens, in my opinion, when you listen to the fans, but you know how to interpret what the fans want in a way that it's gonna still give you good cinematic storytelling.
Yeah.
Star Wars, Disney Star Wars is what happens when you just listen to everything the fans want and you throw it all on screen and say, okay, let's see what sticks. And
Yeah.
Warner Brothers is when you've got a room full of suits that go, we all know what the fans want. It's
Yep.
that thing that Marvel's doing. Let's copy that. And
Yeah.
they have no clue what the hell it even is. Because that's really what I got from the little bit I've seen, maybe 35 to 45 minutes of Justice League here and there. But I totally jumped off that bandwagon with Batman versus Superman. Like that movie for me was so just bad that I just couldn't even get into Justice League and the whole thing with Henry Cavill and the digitized mustache and shit. I was like, I don't know what I'm watching anymore. This movie is totally all over the place. And it screams, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's it. It really does seem that way with Warner Brothers because you look at it and you have movies like Joker, which I still haven't seen, but I'm hearing, mostly good things about people saying that it was a really dope movie. Then you've got Birds of Prey, which I'm hearing are getting kind of mixed or more positive reviews. Then you get weird like stuff like Batman v Superman or Justice League. Wonder Woman was another dope movie. And it's just like it's like for every good movie they come out with, they come out with another movie that has you scratching your head going, so is this connected? Is this not connected? Like, where are we going with this shit? And it's just they don't have a singular vision, and it's painfully apparent in the movies. And so it's really, I think, when you look at this whole kind of conversation in general, it really, between those three studios, breaks down to one of them is getting it, like nailing it on the hand. On the head, I'm sorry. One of them is Disney Star Wars is still kind of trying to figure it out. And Warner Brothers is, like, as far as I'm concerned, still in the dark. Like, they still have no clue what they even want to do. And that's kind of where they're at. I don't think, because I feel like if Warner Brothers was listening to fans, we wouldn't have gotten Batman versus Superman, and we would have gotten that Zack Snyder cut already. But they don't even feel confident enough to kind of come out and make a declarative statement about where the DC universe as a whole is even going to go. Yeah. Like, we know that they've got the Matt Reeves Batman coming out. We still don't know how Joker's going to fit into that. We've got the director saying that might not even be, or the writer saying it might not even be the real Joker. So it's like, well, what the hell is the universe? Where does Birds of Prey connect? Like, why are there certain characters that are here, but now you're going to introduce us new versions of characters that have already interplayed with these ones that have been established? And it's just total confusion. So with me, it's like Warner Brothers they just need to get this shit together, bottom line.
For sure, bro. For sure. I feel like you were looking at the script I was working on earlier today. Jen, I'd like to get your take on this. I don't know if you're like a big DC person, but what do you think about the Justice League situation? Was this listening to fans too much, or what?
So for the record, I have not seen Justice League, but I love hearing people talk about it. Actually, that's one of my favorite things about studying films and stuff. I would say I am a DC fan, though, because the latest films that have come out, especially Shazam, that one totally won me over. Like, I'll go see the Black Adam movie. I'll go see the sequel. Like, that particular part of DC got me really into it. But I'm not sure if I'm really on board with Justice League and even going to go watch it, because I really just want to see like a well-written film. Yeah. And in order for it to be like worth my time in order to do it, so I prefer to just like study it from the outside until I eventually make up my mind to go watch it. But I guess we're talking about how Warner Brothers has been interfering with, I guess, the individual visions of some of the directors and stuff. So it seems a lot of fans went on the side of the directors in this case. And I think that's kind of interesting, because that is still just an individual who probably was also on the side of fans too, but they mostly just wanted to do their own thing, and fans ended up respecting them for making that decision instead of a studio that doesn't know what they're doing, basically. And I find it really interesting that Warner Brothers has developed this reputation to the point like they don't know what they're doing, that of course it's affecting me if I even want to participate on that side of things. I think I would describe what Warner Brothers has done. I think they did not have patience the way Kevin Feige did. That he worked from the ground up very slowly, like the beginning years. Now everything is super fast paced with like 4 or 3 movies a year, but it started really slow. And I feel like Warner Brothers basically wanted to do a 100-meter sprint off the bat, and they basically just like fell on their faces from doing that, instead of, setting up a groove and then eventually speeding things up. So I think they should have, if they wanted to follow the MCU path, they should have done it a lot slower and been more patient. Or maybe they should do what they're doing now, which is, well, first, they shouldn't be towing the line if they want to do one or the other, but I think this idea of just kind of solo characters doing their own thing, I think there is also a niche in the market for that. So, for like Joker, for example, I think Warner Brothers should put their foot down and say, that's just a unique film, and that's just how we want to have that story, just in its own universe. And there's plenty of fans that will be on board for that. So, and there's a niche for that in the market, just to do those kind of stories. So maybe that's where they can find their own personal, unique success.
Interesting. I like it. I just want to say too. I see you guys down there in the chat. Trev, George, and Alex. Give me just a second, and I'll bring you guys in a couple minutes. I think what I want to do now is shift it to just the big question here, and just start a conversation. And then in a little bit after we talk about this, I'll probably shift some people out, and I'll shift these guys in, just because they're waiting down there. So I guess the big thing for me, guys, is, and again, we'll just kind of go around. But of course, if people just have a point or whatever they want to jump in, it's all good. My thing is this, like fandom itself, because of social media now, it can be really loud and it can really affect things strongly. What do you think the responsibility is of fans? Like how should fans use this power? And then what do you think the studio should do as far as like how much of that should they really listen to? Because again, I have this idea in my head that fans for sure know what they will not like in a lot of ways, but I'm not so sure fans actually know what will blow them away and what will really be that thing for them. Like, Dan was talking about Empire, right? Like, I think that Empire did turn a lot of people off when they first saw it, but I think it ended up being this amazing seminal moment in the Star Wars mythos. And it's like fans wouldn't have known that was the thing that they even wanted. Like there could never have been a petition before that for people. You know what I'm saying? So I bring the question to you, Santa. What should fans be doing, and then what should these companies be doing with the noise?
That's a really, really good question. I like to go back to George Lucas's experience with the prequels. He has many times said that Jar Jar was like one of his heart and soul characters. He loves Jar Jar and he loves the Phantom Menace. But the fan reaction to that was so negative that he pulled back, right? So even the fan reaction to Phantom Menace with one of George Lucas's very favorite characters caused him to pull back. Right? It affected him. And I find that fascinating from the standpoint where George Lucas wanted to make his movies for himself, right? And he keeps messing with us with the originals, right? He's got to go back and tweak them every single time.
Yeah.
The clunky, what's a good? But anyway, so he just can't leave us alone. So, but yet he made the Phantom Menace his movie, right? He loves that movie; it's his favorite. And he loves Jar Jar. He had big plans for Jar Jar. He said that Jar Jar was the key to it, right? But then Jar Jar disappears.
Yeah.
The fans rejected that character so strongly that it affected the creator, right? The George Lucas, the guy that wanted to be free to make his movies his way, pulled back. So the fans strong-armed him. And there's little doubt, right? You can't really say that. So what responsibility do fans have today is we have an even louder voice through social media. There's no question that YouTube and Twitter have affected studios. And you did a good job tonight of bringing up the good, the bad, the ugly, right? So we can have a positive voice, but then the accountability on the other side of it is, are we going to get the movies that the studios or even the creators themselves want to give us? I think Daniel touched on that earlier, right? Like if the creators themselves are hamstrung by the fans that won't let them do the movies they want to do, what are we missing? It really begs the question. I don't really know that that it's good or bad, but it's definitely impactful. And fans we're here because we love the franchise so much, and we're giving our money, we're giving our time, we're giving so much of ourselves to it that we feel like we have an investment in it. We want that back from the creators, and when we don't feel that we're getting that equality back from them that we're putting in, then we get that friction. So it's a rough time to be a studio that has these beloved franchises.
Yeah.
And it begs the question why they keep going back to the well when it gets so much more difficult rather than creating something new.
I think that's a fair point, because really, if I think about this, it's so weird. I think the biggest, newest franchise of the last couple of decades is probably Avatar, right? I mean, like maybe Harry Potter before that. Like you could think Harry Potter, but Avatar, which is one movie that came out in 2009, is really even though the film it's basically Ferngully. You know what I mean? Like it's Ferngully, but at the same time, a lot of the concept and the high level world building, it's all unique. That's a new IP. You know?
Well, Harry Potter is a
Yeah,
good example as well because J.K. Rowling has taken in a massive amount of backlash from her prequels.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
again, she's in the same boat that George Lucas was, right? She's the creator. She's the person that created that universe. And the fans, the backlash has been so negative towards her even. So
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy out there.
Yeah, it is. Santa, I'm going to take you out of the stream just to put some people in. But real quick, before you go, do you want to plug your YouTube channel for people?
Oh, thank you so much, Josh. Yeah, I'm brand new to this game. I just love talking about Star Wars. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. If you guys haven't picked up on it,
Nope.
I tend to see the positive in things more than the negative. But I love to have discussions with people who disagree with me. And so I don't expect everybody to toe the line. I don't expect everybody to be just like me. I love to have discussions with people that can bring a different perspective. So if you would come check out my channel, check out what I'm doing. I just love doing it, and I love talking to other people that also have the same passion. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, and they can find it if they just search Star Wars Santa.
Star Wars Santa, you can
Beautiful.
find it. I try to put out some regular content at least once a week or so. Hopefully, we'll be stepping that game up a little bit better and bringing you more very soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
Yep.
Take
Bye,
care,
Santa.
Santa.
See you.
All right,
Take care,
Daniel.
buddy.
Daniel, you want to take on that question, and then I'm gonna bring in Trev, and I'm gonna bring George and Alex in a second as well. I see you guys down there. Give me just a little bit of time here. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Well, yeah, like kind of touching on what you and Santa had to say. When people people that are fans that are watching something start getting involved into the creative, it stops being creative. Like that's the whole point. Like just like the Avatar, it was something a breath of fresh air. People loved it. It was like it was something that they never seen before because they're not expecting something that they want to see. So like that's the whole point of I like the creative part of Hollywood is getting diminished by trying to appease fans, and it's sometimes getting ridiculous when you can just put out something very fresh, new, and creative that's just based on creativity and fantasy and things that people will enjoy, and just giving it a chance and putting it out there. Just like Star Wars, who would have thought that movie like that back then would come to be like this?
Sure.
And us to even be on this channel talking about it right now, that's just mind blowing. How much influence, just an idea and turned into a script, turned into a movie, has trickled down over time and influenced all of our daily lives. It's not that deep, but sometimes it is that deep. If you think about it. But yeah, I just I think I'm a big, huge Marvel fan. Marvel is my baby.
Yeah.
And everything they do, they damn near can't do wrong in my eyes, because of how much right they've done.
Yeah.
But just everything, I'll give everything, the time of day. I'll give it a chance. I'm not. I'll watch the Justice League. I'll watch anything DC puts out. I just seen Birds of Prey this morning.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I enjoyed it. I could see definitely if you got kind of a little bit of a male ego, or if you kind of you're not into that kind of thing. You wouldn't enjoy it, and you wouldn't get some of the references and jokes and stuff like that. Especially if you're not a comic book person, you'll be you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because some of the comic book stuff's it makes sense, and people like us are oh yeah, we're able to kind of connect dots and
Sure.
it makes us happy. But the general audience is not gonna pick up on it, and might not like the critics, because they like know, like they can like absorb it, and they know like what they're trying to hit at in the movie. The critics will like it, and then sometimes like the general audience not so much, because it's not appeasing what they're looking for, because they're looking for Harley Quinn with them booty shorts on walking daddy's little monster.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's at least what I was looking for, at least. I mean, a little bit, just like a
Yeah.
little.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm respectful, but like,
Yeah.
You
look,
I was expecting that, at least when she pulled out that shirt.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
like,
yeah.
but it was also cool seeing her just in her all out like comic book costume, and like being able to just like dive into her like character like of that, and her emancipating herself, and that was pretty cool. Like I enjoyed that, and I was able to like understand it till like just like everything else, it's just about how it's perceived and taken in. And I think the more people start getting involved into like the creative process, the more it's going to get diluted.
Yeah.
So like more positive conversations like this spark creativity, spark like that part of your brain, like that third eye, with your pineal gland, to kind of like awaken that part of yourself to try to think about deeper stuff. And
Yeah.
it kind of opens that creativity and opens that part of you up, that it's a lot of diluted now in society of creativity, because we're always looking down instead of looking out or in. You know what I mean? Like we're looking down at our phones like so much. You know what I mean? And the creative process is just losing its fire. Sometimes and especially when the fan base gets too involved.
Yeah.
Like Marvel is a great example of the fan base getting involved and them like sitting back and looking at it, and like looking at what is like that's okay, that's reasonable, like that makes sense. And then the other stuff that's just like that it's just like trying to appease like a certain part of the country, or not the country, but a certain type of person,
Sure.
or like
sure.
what they're looking for, or
Well, I think
it's
Marvel
just,
sort of learned that lesson too, right? Because like if you look at some of the body of work within the MCU, even at like some of those first sequels, they almost make them formulaic, thinking, sitting back and saying fans like this, so let's give them more of that, right? And then you get the call from Steve Jobs that tells Bob Iger, Iron Man 2 sucks, dude. You know what I mean? And then you see Feige kind of understand that, like, fans might think they want more of the same, but what they really want is a new twist on an old lemon. And that's
exactly.
so that's where you start to get stuff like, Ragnarok, which is this fucking inspired, really cool take on that. Yeah. So I'm totally with you.
I love that.
Yeah, man.
Like,
well,
Taika Waititi is like I love this him as like a creative, like, because that is a perfect example of this like creativity. You know what I mean? And he even has that freaking look, man. Like he's just like brewing something.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
he
Like,
does.
that, like,
Did you see what he did with his Oscar?
Yeah.
Where he puts his Oscar under the chair in front of him? That's so funny. That's so Taika.
Like he's so witty, and then like just like Jojo Rabbit and stuff like that. Like he's gonna push like the comic book people, get the real stories that they want to like get, like the end that which they expect from the MCU.
Because he touches on
which
Planet
we've
Hulk.
grown to
You know what I mean?
expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with this new one coming out, like he's going to do the same kind of thing, like do something like that we just did not expect, come out of left field, and do a new twist on an old story that we know Thor, we know like what he does, but like it's so cool to see like something new and refreshing, just like the Spider-Man and just like things like that, and Kevin Feige and everybody there is able to like do it so well, and we're able to enjoy it so much. And talk about that, like especially and speculate and like break down
Oh, trust me,
down.
it's way nicer talking about Marvel than it is Star Wars. I
Yeah,
I
and
learned.
like I love, and I love when you cover Marvel and I eat it up, because
Yeah.
like I'm on Reddit as well, and I'm like checking for leaks and stuff like that, and it's just like, wow.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Sorry about that.
It's all
But
right.
it's just really awesome to for us to be able to talk about this in a positive way and bounce like
Right.
things off each other. And like this is like where the creativity like comes into effect, like that actually like touches you beyond the theater or beyond like the screen,
Yeah.
So
For sure.
that's
Well,
what I feel
well,
about that.
Daniel, I appreciate that take, brother. I think you had a lot of good stuff to say there, and I appreciate you being on. I'm probably gonna yeah, I'm gonna rotate you out, my man, just so I can get some of these other people in here. But thanks for
I just want to say, thanks. I appreciate being here so much, and you having me on, and keep doing what you're doing, brother. And
yeah, man.
And much blessings to you and peace and love, man.
Thanks, brother. I
To all
appreciate
you
it,
guys,
and I hope you
all
come
of
back,
those
man.
nerds out there. I
Sure,
will.
I
I would
appreciate
much
that.
love to be back. This is my
Awesome.
first time ever being on, so I appreciate it.
Well, we love having you, brother.
Nice.
Have a good night and enjoy that birthday tomorrow, man.
I appreciate it,
Yes,
and you,
you
Jen,
too.
happy birthday as well. You guys have a great night.
All right,
Yes,
take
good night.
care.
All right.
Take care,
All right,
brother.
Everybody.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna bring in Jen. Why don't you take that question next?
Yes.
But I'm gonna go ahead and bring in George, and then after that we'll bring in Alex, and then I think we got to bring in Daniel. But yeah, go ahead, Jen. Give us your take on that.
Yeah, I wanted to make my final statement before I leave because I am suffocating in this mask. So yeah, he had a lot of good points, but I want to bring up something else too. So, that idea of something old that you put a new twist on, I want to add on a concept to that. And what it is okay. For example, let's go all the way back to Star Wars itself. So when it came out, sci-fi was considered a kind of niche genre, only appreciated by a few people. But what Star Wars seems to have done was it opened up other audiences into realizing that sci-fi was something for them as well. And then you go ahead a couple decades later, I would say in my case, with the MCU, I never really considered myself a comic book fan. But when I started seeing these films, I realized, no, that is something for me. I actually do like comic book material and stuff like that. And what do those have in common? It was something that was niche that suddenly opened up its audience, and it kind of looked outwards to other people and brought people into its fold. And I feel that's a spark of genius. That's what Star Wars needs to continue having. So instead of it only trying to appeal to its current fan base, of course that's really important. I think people would say with the Last Jedi, that was a lot of people I've heard saying it alienated the original fan base. But what it needs to be careful of is that if it only appeals to its own fan base and it doesn't appeal to anyone on the outside, it's not going to grow, and it's not really going to have that spark of genius that people would, normally describe it as. So
It'll die off like Westerns did, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If it doesn't, but then again, it can be revived. It takes a special creator who will take that genre and find a way for it to, touch other people outside of the genre and realize, oh, maybe the Western does have something to tell me. And I mean, I think every genre has that kind of potential. It just takes very special creators that know how. For example, I would say like horror movies. That's not something that's really for me. But I have heard that in the last couple years, there have been some really great horror movies out there. For example, like A Quiet Place or Get Out. And I haven't seen those films, but I have so many friends telling me, oh, you need to go see those. Because who knows, what if I really love them and then all of a sudden I become a horror genre
Escape
fan.
Room was surprisingly good. I'm waiting for that sequel.
Which one?
Yeah, so it just takes some really unique creators, and it can bring in someone from the outside into the genre. And anyone can do that. It just takes very special people.
I love that answer, man. I think there's so
Yeah.
much cool stuff in what you just said because, like, you know, and that's one of the things I think the Star Wars fandom has a problem with in general is we don't appreciate that these things can be entry points for other fans, and
Exactly.
and sometimes we can be combative because we're like, well, that didn't scratch my itch, and we're losing sight of the idea that, like, look, what we really want is more Star Wars fans. And that's awesome. So yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you just said, and I really appreciate your take. So thank you very much.
Yep, that's all I wanted to add. So
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we'll let you go rest your hot head, and again, happy birthday.
yeah,
I'm glad to have you on here. Glad to have you as a part of the Den of Nerds for sure.
thanks so much. It was a
Happy
fun
birthday.
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Birthday.
All right, take care, Jen.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Dan, why don't you go ahead and take that question next, and I'm gonna bring in Alex.
Alright. So I'm gonna quote a little something from my boy John Hammond here. We're gonna,
Jurassic
you
Park.
know, I'm definitely gonna butcher it. Please don't hate me for this. So I feel like the toxic fans need to step back and take a side, just step aside, right? And let fans like civil fans like us that can talk without the insults or the injuries or the everything else, the personal stuff. We can, because I was hoping Dan was going to stick on because I kind of disagreed with bruh's point a little bit about appeasing the fans and
Yeah, speak on it, man. Go ahead.
having it be a little less creative because I feel like, am I allowed to bring in another YouTuber then, or is that not?
No, that's cool. That's totally cool. Go ahead.
Okay. Star Wars Theory, Vader's Shards of the Past. That
Yeah.
fan film was better than anything Disney did. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like certain fans, they know what they're talking about, but I will say, because I remember back in the day when the Age of Ultron was out and folk were, before what, they were talking about Scarlet Witch trying to break open the multiverse to bring in mutants. I was never a fan of that idea, So I feel like some ideas just need to stay an idea, but there are others that can actually work. So when it comes down to it, man, I feel that the creators of this stuff should look at the fans and for writers, honestly, because this right here, it ain't it, Chief. Like some of the stuff we've gotten should not have, we never should have gotten,
Yeah.
If the corporations really cared about the fans, we would have gotten great content like Endgame and Infinity War and other great stuff that we love,
So you're kind of taking the position that it's not necessarily that they're listening too much to fans. It's that they're just fucking up separate of that, basically. That, like, you can listen to the fans and you can still create good stuff. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
Exactly. That's all it is.
Cool.
And they just need to, I know they can do it. They can do it. Like, they just choose not to because
I agree
it's all
with
about that
They
green,
do-
baby.
It seems weird, yeah. Like if they're going for that quick buck a lot of the
Yeah.
time, I think.
Right.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the take. I think it's really cool. I'm gonna rotate you out, Dan, just so I can bring in Zach because I know we're just getting late on time. I want to get more people in here, but I hope you come back, brother. Your voice is welcome.
For sure. Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks for having me, guys.
For sure,
Take
man.
care.
Have a good night.
You too, buddy.
All right, let me bring in Zach. And Trev, I'm going to go to you next, brother. I know you probably got some thoughts. You've been watching us. You've been hearing. What's the deal with fans? Where's the responsibility lie? And how should studios approach it in the new era of technology?
I think fans just like we have a lot of opinions. Clearly, right? There's a lot of people everywhere. Everybody has a different opinion, and it's hard to take them all in as one big thing, right? Like you got outrage over some things. You got like I don't even know how good this, like, for example, let's take Birds of Prey right now. A lot of good. It's got a lot of good reviews. Like you said, it came out pretty good. It's not going to do well in the box office. It probably won't make enough money to earn a sequel.
Right.
And so what's the fans' responsibility in that? Like, so were they making that for the fans, or were they making that? Did they think there would be enough? How did they justify $100 million movie, 97 or something, minus tax credits, whatever it is? How do they justify that if it's not going to make money, and if it's not going to do kind of like what it's only a certain segment of fans really wanted that.
Right.
Like what I can't remember. Daniel was saying people that are going to it are going for it for Harley Quinn for most of it, right? For like a lot of that kind of thing, right? So I don't know. I feel like we need, and also like Daniel was saying, we need better people in charge of these things. Literally.
Yeah.
We need better people with like who are saying, well, like I think I was talking to you the other day about this, like in the Discord, if you recall, like saying, why aren't we hitting the big stories more consistently, and then trying to build to those big stories, and then because those are the best selling stories. Like for example, in DC, Marvel, even Star Wars. Star Wars has a ton of comics, right? Ton of comics, ton of books, ton of everything, and they ignored a large swath of it. Took out little pieces here for the Rise of Skywalker, little pieces here for TLJ, little pieces here for whatever. But like it's like, why aren't we hitting like the giant stories, like the way Infinity Gauntlet was hit with Endgame, as Dan was saying, with Infinity War and Endgame, how Infinity Gauntlet was a humongous story in the 90s.
Yep.
Humongous. And we built all the way up to that. And it was fantastic. Everyone enjoyed it. So when DC tries to do that, like but they're not even really trying to do that. Like
Right.
have you seen that other than BVS, which Al hates, like where they did like Dark Knight Returns and Death of Superman kind of smashed together, as I said in the chat earlier.
Yeah.
Like what else have they done? What else have they done recently?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
what's Joker? Was Joker Joker wasn't? It's just a take on the origin, right? Like it's
right. Yeah.
But go ahead, Josh.
Well, it's not Killing Joke, and I think that like that's a totally fair point. Feige is really unique in this respect, where I think honestly it just comes down to the fact that he understands that a great comic book story is not confined to just that genre. That a great comic book story is great because it elevates past the medium. And so, like, he's able to understand that, and also he has this really special ability to actually bring it to the screen. So we talked. This is almost a rehash of the conversation we had on Discord the other night, but and it's kind of something we've been talking about on the live show as well. It's like it's one thing to even know what what it is, but it's kind of another thing to be able to present that thing in a way that echoes that greatness that you have had before. But I think a lot of it it's just Hollywood thinking to me. It's the Hollywood system has for a long time has been incredibly derivative, and I don't think there's a lot of free thinking there. And partially it's because the way that industry works and the way that the money flows in it doesn't really reward you for taking in big risks. And on paper, I'm sure there were some executives that looked at literally, I was joking when I said this, but I was kind of not joking, literally looked at how many Harley Quinn costumes there were on their Instagram and thought that somehow translated into a focus tested IP that would do well, right? So it's like it's just derivative thinking in the worst way possible. That's just my opinion, though, of where we get a lot of these mistakes.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Like I said, Marvel, Feige has been doing it right. He's taking stories and he's doing twists on them, and he's making content that Marvel fans and comic fans in general are loving, and clearly everyone else is loving because Endgame is the highest selling movie of all time, right?
It's the biggest movie ever,
yeah. Right. So, and saying that, and as you were talking about earlier, why can't DC do that? CW did the Crisis there, and it was terrible. I kind of stopped watching the CW shows maybe after midway through season 3 of Arrow and kind of Flash or whatever there.
Yeah, that's about where I fell up to.
I tried to watch the Crisis thing, and I'm like, God, this is terrible. this is like there was a few select scenes, like the Smallville scene was kind of okay.
Yeah.
Even though, but like but you know, like it was terrible. And saying that, Crisis on the Infinite Earths is a landmark story in comics. Landmark story in comics. And that should have been done on the big screen. And it should have been done way better. Way better.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed that they can't do that. I'm amazed that, and so when we have all these, again, pockets of fans saying whatever their opinion is, I'm not even that concerned about that. I just like, you have your best selling stories right there.
Yep.
Right there.
Yep.
Take a twist on them and appeal to a mass audience. And hopefully if they appeal to a bunch of comic book fans, then the way Infinity Gauntlet did, the way Civil War did, then they should appeal to a mass audience as well if you're able to do it correctly. And that's really all I gotta say.
No, dude, I appreciate the take. I think that's totally fair. That's a totally fair take. I want to go to George next. First of all, George, welcome to the stream.
Greetings. Thank you.
You're welcome, man. Yeah. Do you have some thoughts on this question? Like, what do you think about fandom, social media? What responsibility does fandom have? And then on the flip side of that, what do the studios do, man? It's kind of an unprecedented time for them. How much should they listen? What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Well, I'm going to present my thoughts on a technical level, and after I am done talking about the technical level, it will segue to the creative, which will help everyone understand what's I think is really going on. And my experience is just pure corporate. I'll start off with Disney itself, then I'll work over to the DC universe. Specifically, the corporate mentality is that the executives, while they have creatives and all that stuff, they don't make decisions lightly. They have an entire marketing team that will figure out what are the points that they need to hit for a particular movie, and then they have the creative meeting where they say we need to make money, and this is how we're going to be making money. This is what the marketing team is looking at, the demographics in terms of what we need to hit, and so the creative runs with that, and you end up getting the Disney Star Wars trilogy. Now the problem with this is that in today's world, the true villain in Disney is not Iger. It's not Kathleen Kennedy. It's the marketing team. It's the people that are advising them in terms of what the market is. They're not actually listening to the social media. Okay, before Disney Star Wars, social media wasn't powerful enough, wasn't fast enough, wasn't robust enough, it wasn't organized enough to present a unified message to the corporates. So they lived with a marketing department, or they either had a small internal one, but mostly it's always outsourced, because that kind of department, they only need it for a couple of months in a year. So it's always outsourced, and this marketing system is in conflict with the audience. They're trying to make themselves relevant, and the only way to do that is to not follow what the audience wants, because any intern that works at Disney, any secretary that Iger has under his belt can say, okay, tell me what the pulse is, and they'll just go online. They will find that information in a half an hour, and they'll give them a list. They'll give them a printout and say, okay, these are the trends. This is what's going on. This is what is going to make people happy. This is not what's going to make people happy. There's no such thing as the audience is not split. Everyone when they say, "Oh, Disney split the Star Wars audience," that's impossible. It didn't split the Star Wars. When everybody hears split, everybody thinks 50-50. No, it's not 50-50. The audience split dramatically. It was more like 80-20. There's a huge audience that actually buys stuff, and I'll tell you why it's 80-20, because there's no toys out there. There's no product. There's no product in Walmart. Toys R Us doesn't exist anymore. There's no product in Kmart. All these superstores that would carry toys, they're not carrying it because these guys are licensees. They take the property from the licensor, and they say, okay, you know what? You're in production. Show us what you got in production, so that way we're excited enough so we can put shelf space for your product. When they saw what they had and it was a mess, they're not gonna be like Disney, who can afford to waste $1 billion here and there.
Right.
They're in the business of making money. And when they saw they're not going to be making money, the store shelves are empty. They filled it
Right.
up with other things. And this is Disney. Now, Disney. And now let's talk about Marvel, which is part of Disney. The reason why Marvel did it right is because they did it slowly. They're able to put out a product, gauge the audience, and then adjust for the next product. And they did that slowly over 12 years. And they were able to do it right. That is why Marvel is such a success. Every single product that came out was a slow dip into the water, and every time they saw what the market was how it reacted, they improved upon the next product, and every product after that. Yeah, sure, you don't like this particular movie or that particular movie, but you know what? That's just a blip. That's just them moving slowly backwards out of into the shallow end, just for a moment until they go into a deep dive with the next movie. But that is technically on a corporate level, that is what's going on, and that's how the creative was managed, and that's what we're getting now. Should Before I go into the DC universe, should the audience have a say in the product? Absolutely not. The audience should never have a say in what the corporate world does, specifically when they're doing a movie. Why? Movies like The Big Sleep, The Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, Ben-Hur, Superman the movie, Batman Returns, Big Trouble in Little China. I can go on, right? All these movies only exist because the creatives took a chance, just like
Right.
Iron Man. Iron Man is part of that list. They took a chance, and when they saw that they struck gold, then they continue with that gold. Now, what here? But you're going to say, well, what about Superman 3, Superman 4? Yeah, well, what happened there is they didn't listen to the audience. Superman 3 and Superman 4 is like Disney Star Wars. The producers were just there to grab money. They weren't paying attention. Now, why is Disney Star Wars exist? It's because Disney doesn't care about the audience the way everyone else does. Disney's audience has been and always will be predominantly female. Disney princesses. It's their cash cow. The Disney brand is predominantly female. No ifs, ands, or buts. This is just pure facts. The, from Snow White all the way to the most recent Disney princess and those two, the Frost chick and the other chick, I forgot, Frozen, right? This is their money. This is a cash cow. They wanted to move Star Wars into a female brand. I've been involved in the creative, in corporate, when we had a property, a boy property or a girl property, and they were flipping it around. It never works. It always fails. It's because the property is inherent. The core elements of the property is either a boy property or a girl property. It is never both at the same time. It's impossible. It just doesn't work. There's no property out there that works that way. Now, the other thing, you can say, well, Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars is a boy and girl brand. Why? Because it's ubiquitous. There's a powerful female lead in that movie, just as there's a powerful male lead in that movie. And it's as simple as that. But the way George Lucas the way that is devised is it's the hero's journey.
Right.
The thing is, with good story, the hero's journey is inherent in the human psyche. They will never they can come up with crap like the Disney Star Wars trilogy. After a few years, it will be a non-issue in the psyche of the human condition, and there is no way that the children of today who have grown up with Disney Star Wars, they will not look at it with reverence in the future, because eventually they will be they will come across as they're growing up the hero's journey. You can't deny them that chance. There's no way to put a wall where you're going to remove that experience from somebody. They will come across the hero's journey, and they will inherently come across and go, wait a minute, this makes sense. This actually feels right. This this is a good thing. Why? Because the hero's journey has been with us since the dawn of man, since Shakespeare, and before that, the Iliad and all that stuff. It just works. It's part of the human condition. We all love to see the hero be challenged, be pushed to the ground, get mud thrown in his face, and then watch him, persevere, stand up, dust himself off, and at the end be victorious. We all love that. It's all part of our genetic structure, our mental structure. There is no way to throw that away. Disney threw that away because they were more interested in switching a boy-girl brand, which is ubiquitous, a way of life, so to speak. People get married in Star Wars outfits, for crying out loud. Just like Doctor Who and just like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's Disney and Disney Marvel. DC, they needed to get to where Marvel is. They needed to get where Disney is real fast.
Right.
So that's why they put out the stuff that they put out. They needed to be running 100 miles an hour as soon as the shotguns. Well, they put a lot of money in, and they got so property out. Okay, but the thing is, they knew what they were doing, because there's one inherent thing that they finally were able to execute just perfectly. One is they took Wonder Woman's a non-issue. That's the hero's journey. That's just a given. But that's just one story out of all the Disney products. Out of the Warner Brothers products that they put out. So it's a non-issue because everything else is crap around it, if you want to take it as an example.
Yeah.
Now, the Joker is a repurposed script. It's obvious it's a repurposed script. But here's the genius move that Warner Brothers did, is that they acknowledged and they openly embraced the multi-universe. And in Crisis on Infinite Earths, the TV series crossover, five episode crossover,